And decorations have gone up for a national celebration. It's Sunday, so it's time to go over and run the genset, drain the pressure accumulator, and top up the diesel on the genset. Well, I rubbed this plastic with a bit of Scotch-Brite and re-silicated it on. It seems like it's sticking so far, so we'll see how we go. There's the pressure accumulator draining, genset's running, and Jubaedah confirmed that this was all badly bug affected, so not much rise to be had off that. Well, the pressure accumulator's been drained, genset's been turned off, fuel gauge has been checked, that hasn't moved, so I'm going to definitely top up the diesel now, and we're now back to pressurised with our little leak in place. And we have a guest. This little look. Our little friend down here has figured out that this is a nice damp place to be. We did actually have 5mm of rain yesterday, so it's not completely dry. It hadn't rained since the 11th of July. Yesterday was 3rd of August, so it was quite a while between rains. But yeah, so I shall go and turn off my sump pump because I've been pumping out the service pit while I'm here. So it's got some water running at the moment. You can see it all flows across there towards Dad Egg's house, and then there's a gutter that it drops into. So I'm sure there's better ways of directing this. If the compact track loader wasn't there, I would be pumping out of the side of the pit across into the drain and the floor of the toilet. But that thing's still stuck there. Must get around to chasing Indo Tara again to see if I can get in contact with anybody who's prepared to send a service team out to fix it. But yeah, I'll shut this off and do my diesel top up on the genset. Well, it seems like the fuel gauge might have actually been right. It only took that much to top it up. So it's fairly economical on the fuel, it seems. Because when I was running it this morning there was no real load on it because the batteries were already fully charged. So I was just using the power it took to turn everything over rather than the power it took to generate electricity, which means less fuel consumption. But we're full now. I'll put that back in the shed and lock everything up. Okay, that's me done. 10 AM, 30 degrees, 80% humidity. I no wonder I'm uncomfortable. I'm back to the nice air-conditioned lounge room again. Jubaedah went out and bought a new washing machine yesterday, which arrived and was installed in the afternoon, so things happen quick around here. So this is supposedly larger capacity than the Fisher Paykel, 8 kilograms, whereas Fisher Paykel was 6.5. But yeah, so that's been put in place, and the Fisher Paykel has been moved down into the corner down here in the off-grid area, and the guy who came and installed the new one yesterday, he's going to come back today apparently and have a go at getting at the bearings in this one and seeing whether we can fix it up. I printed off a couple of useful sheets yesterday, like that's the bits and pieces from the parts kit that I could get from Big Parts Warehouse in Australia for an outrageous number, and an exploded diagram of the machine to show where those bits go. Seal, bearing. So if we can get those out and get part numbers off them, should be able to get those locally and maybe restore this machine to function. Maybe give it another 20 years. But if it can't be fixed, well, I don't think it actually owes me anything, because, as I say, I've had 20 years out of it. So Fisher and Paykel, I like them. And I forgot to mention, this new machine costs less than $300. It just goes to show how overpriced white goods are in Australia. If we get the Fisher and Paykel working again, this one will move across to the left, because there's another tap over there which we can feed it water from. The drain in the floor that it's draining to currently, because apparently it's a gravity drain and not a pump. So this one will move to there, and the Fisher and Paykel can go back in there, and we'll have two of them hooked up and operational. I just need to put a double adapter on the power cable up there. That's no problem, can do that. So Jubaedah's happy at the moment. I decided that rather than plug a double adapter into that extension cable, I'll actually mount a new double power outlet right there. And using that orange cable, run it back and across to that junction box over there. And I get my extension cable back. So I'll wire up everything and put it in place back to that point, then turn off that circuit and connect it into that junction box. So far so good. I've got that installed, and the cable run tied down back up to that corner and to one more cable tie there, which puts it in the trough of that strip. But I've reached meltdown, so I'm going to go and cool down. Well, that's all cabled in and operational now. I think there's no rescuing this. We have cracks in here, which means this is expanded and it grinds against the inside of the rest of the motor, and that was what was squeaking. It wasn't bearings after all. So I think this one is a death knell. I'll go and have a look at what that costs on the parts warehouse, but I'm betting it's more than the cost of a new machine by the time we get it here. Well, I looked up that part on the big parts warehouse and it said no longer available, and I thought, oh, okay, well that's going to be pretty terminal for the machine then. But the guys cleaned the dust out from between the rotor and the stator, which I guess like drum brakes that squeal perhaps. But anyway, they cleaned out the dust, cleaned it all up, reassembled the machine, which I thought was going to be a long shot also, and seems to work okay now. So, bugger if I know, we now have two washing machines at work. So, Jubaedah's happy. It's all good. And, yes. Interesting tap arrangement, but what are we doing here currently? I think we're draining. I should ask Jubaedah what those two guys cost us yesterday, because labour being cheap here, I imagine that was not an expensive exercise at all. Haven't been down to the rice factory for ages, and it's prime rice drying season by the look of it. Yeah, more bug affected rice over the bat. Pretty bad at the moment. But there's still rice being produced. Well, I asked Jubaedah and she said it was 400, which means 400,000 repair, which means about $40. So those guys are not as cheap as usual labour around here, which is fair enough because they got some skills, but it gives you an idea of like about a man day, and it cost $40. So yeah, labour's cheap around here. But yeah, that's out the back working properly. So the cracks aren't really a big issue in that motor. Well, on with the show. I replaced the RJ45 connector on the switch end of the cable that goes to that camera at the front there, and it's been working perfectly for the last couple of hours, so that might be what the fix was. But I've been trying to figure out how to change that Shed West PTZ label down the bottom, and I finally got a tool which should be able to do it, but when I try to connect to the GUI for the camera, it says no power. So I think at some stage what I'll do is I'll run an extension cord up and power plug pack and plug the camera directly into power, and then see if I can change that, because I only need it for that task, I think. But yeah, it's nothing's ever as easy as it should be, but replacing that one end seems to have done a lot of good. So I put that down to just corrosion of the contacts. Everything corrodes in Bakung. Well, it might be bug affected, but the rice crop's still worth harvesting apparently. There's people harvesting it over here. And there's the threshing machine. And there's also another threshing machine over here. This is all much advanced on when I first came here. Fraction less than 10 years ago, I guess, when this used to be a manual operation. People sort of grabbing a handful of straw and beating the rice out of it. At least it's motorised now. But with motor, one of those machines costs about $200, so that wouldn't even buy you the petrol motor in Australia, probably. All this decorations up for the upcoming Indonesian National Day, and people are asking Jubaedah, why doesn't your house have lights on it like all the other houses? So she succumbed to peer pressure and bought some lights, and that's just gone up the front of our house, courtesy of Dado and Santa, so I get turned on at night. But there's actually a couple of strips of RGB LED strip across the front of the house that were there from construction, but of course due to the local inability to follow instructions, they weren't installed correctly. They were just taking end to end. The original design called for the two 2 amp 12 volt power supplies that supplied were to be wired up there, one at each, and that wasn't done. Instead they were wired back to another 12 volt supply I'd built for the rest of the house that was to be mounted centrally in the house. That ended up being mounted near the 220 volt switchboard, which was not the idea, because with 12 volts I didn't want to run any further than I had to. But these fortunately are just plugged directly into a 220 volt outlet, of which I have copious now. So there's 2 strings along the front there. That probably won't show up too well in daytime. But you might want them turned on. Okay, they're on. So, starting with Box House, this is where we have the glittery lights, then back across the back of Nando's house, then across the front of Santa's house, and then across our house, and then Yaya's. So, I'm surrounded by sparkly lights. That should suffice, I think. Well, there you go. Now I can go back inside. Well, Friday snuck up on me again. Now, we are going to make one more change here. This plumbing over here, that's coming off the output of a pressure pump, because this machine wasn't operating on gravity flow from the tank behind me. So we had to redo this plumbing so that it came from the output of the pressure pump. Now this machine over here, that tap there, that's just on gravity flow, so it's very, very slow, which doesn't please Jubaedah greatly. So what I've done is I've ordered another one of those wire connectors, which we'll put on there and connect the hose for this machine to the wire connector. So this machine will be on the higher pressure water as well. So that's all we should require at this point to make everything happy. Then we'll have that spare tap left over there, so if Jubaedah really wants to, she can take the twin tub washer and put that there and have 3 washing machines lined up, which is getting a bit over the top. I suspect people think we might be a bit decadent, because when you add it up, we've got lots of things here that other people might only have one of if they're lucky. Like there's 4 TVs, 3 washing machines, 4 fridges. Yeah, it'll get a bit absurd really. Mind you, I'm only using one computer regularly, 3 periodically. In Melbourne I worked out at one point that I had, including all the computerised embedded type things, I had about 14 computers in operation at times. So yeah, well, that's why my power bill was so big in Melbourne. Before I got solar power, I think I hit $1,200 for a quarter. So yeah, no wonder I've spent so much on solar power here. I use lots of electricity. But yeah, so that's where we're at with this. I think it's time to go and edit something down and do an upload.